been roughly around 9 months since we have been mandated by the state of New York to take over the inspection process for the Village of Spring Valley and their building department. Out of approximately 1,200 parcels, we have noticed over 4,000 violations. Some of the ones that we come across on a daily basis are just fire traps of electrical violations, overcrowding. Illegal construction you can find on a daily basis throughout the Village of Spring Valley where no building permits were ever issued. There are structures of cinder block structures that tower 30 feet into the air that there are no building permits issued for. There are just so many that it's nerve-wracking. I don't believe that the inspections are being routinely conducted on the basis as needed, 1 year and 3 year. And if they were, and if the violations weren't remediated, then they would bring them into Spring Valley Justice Court. And at that time, the prosecutor would, I guess, delegate the authority or the process to the code enforcement officer to negotiate a finding and a settlement with the building owner. And that would result in maybe a $25 fine. Totally inefficient, and I don't believe there was much follow-up. I believe the common issue with Spring Valley and the lack of enforcement and the lack of inspections was due to the fact that they were working off some type of a list that they compiled that was inaccurate and incomplete. So the number of parcels were not specifically, say, itemized to the inspection type that was needed. They gave us a master list. They considered it a master list of parcels that was, like I said, incomplete, inaccurate. And if there were inspections that were completed, they were marked completed, but the majority of the list was needed. That's how they defined if an inspection was needed. They just marked it needed, not knowing what type of inspection, an annual inspection, a triannual inspection, a fire inspection. Was it a school? Was it a synagogue? Was it a house, a business? It was just completely inaccurate. When we did go back to some of the ones that were indicated completed, we went back to find that there was no follow-up on that initial inspection, which is critical to seek compliance. You need to know what the violations are that exist, and you need to go back to ensure that the violations were abated. You had the legal department search all the parcels, take the master list that was provided to us by Spring Valley, go to the tax rolls, cross-reference all of the parcels to determine what parcels existed, what were accurate, do the addresses exist. That took, I would say, roughly 2 months to really get a complete and accurate master list that we now have. It's been very arduous and tedious at the same time, just for the fact that we have to send the inspectors out. We have to get them to the address. We have to ensure that we're able to get into the building. We have to set up appointments we have to make appointments to get in. Sometimes you're unable to gain access. And then when you gain access, you have to take photos. You have to document everything. You have to bring your reports back to the office. We have to have legal review them. We have to send out the orders to remedy. If the orders to remedies are not working, we have to send out notice of hearing. We have to schedule hearings. We have to bring in hearing officers. We have to develop a whole case to present to the hearing officer, and at the same time have the respondent come in to defend their actions or to seek compliance or to compel compliance. Initially, when we started this undertaking, it was we entered into an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Spring Valley, and it's detailed in a document that we would share their software services, their inspectors. Initially, we had roughly 10 staff members from the Village of Spring Valley that were participating in this project, and it was somewhat beneficial until the fact that the majority of the inspectors that they provided were not handing in the proper documentation. They weren't following direction. They actually stopped coming to work. We have one remaining inspector from the Village of Spring Valley. We had to, return those employees back to the Village of Spring Valley since they were not carrying out our orders. The record keeping in the Village of Spring Valley, they use this a software platform that's common throughout the industry, but you have to be able to put in the proper information. There was no details being entered into the software management system, no inspections, no follow-ups. There's no certificates of occupancy that we can find. To find one certificate of occupancy can take you days. There's files that are not uploaded into their electronic filing system. You have to go into a basement of the infamous 𝐒𝐻RT Center in the Village of Spring Valley and go through boxes and boxes of documents to find any type of paperwork. Sometimes you're able to locate some documents. On the majority of the time, no. What has been taking place is with compliance, in regard to compliance, is that when we do send the inspectors in and we make the property owner aware of these violations, it's amazing how many of the property owners would say, wow, I never knew that I had this many violations. And you know why? It was because there were no inspections ever done in the past. So the property owner wasn't aware of the existing violations. I'm not going to say in every case, but in the majority of the cases. So they come in, either they try to come into compliance, we try to educate them at the same time, and if they're unable to come into compliance, and we issue a notice of hearing and we bring them into the notice of hearing and we go through the hearing process, some of them want to enter into a consent order, acknowledging the fact that they are in violation, acknowledging that they will come into compliance, and then actually paying a fine for that whole process. But they are seeking compliance. They want to be in compliance, and we're helping them achieve that goal. Inaccurate data, lack of enforcement, lack of inspections. This is all from the Village of Spring Valley, what we inherited. And most of all was the lack of cooperation from the Village of Spring Valley. We need to make sure that everyone is code compliant for everyone's safety. We have our volunteers out there on a daily basis, and we need to protect them. We are turning the tide, and we will bring compliance to the Village of Spring Valley.